From about the age of 7, Caleb would spend about a month every summer staying with his uncle in Wheatfield, which is in northeast Arizona. And he loved staying there because he and his cousin Dominic got to ride horses and play with the dogs and go fishing and go camping by the lake. And even his aunt would come over sometimes and go camping with them. And one night in the summer of 2010, when Caleb and Dominic and their aunt are all camping, their aunt says, "You know what, guys, I'm going to go into town and pick up a friend of mine and pick up some munchies for you guys." And after she leaves, the boys decide to do some fishing. They catch a trout, start a fire, and cook the fish for dinner. And as the sun starts to set, their area gets pretty quiet and the boys are just chilling by the fire. And they usually hear howling and partying at night, but this particular night, it was just 2 campers on the west side of the lake, and one near the boys who was already asleep. And Caleb gets the feeling that something is watching them from the bushes. So he takes his flashlight and he shines it in the trees, and he sees nothing. And the coyotes start howling on the south side of the lake. And over time, the boys can hear them getting closer and closer. And Caleb starts freaking out when they hear one howl right behind them. And both boys decide, we're out. And Dominic starts putting his tackle box away. But he decides to put a big stick on top of it that would keep anything but a person out of it. And they put everything away as best that they can and hurry inside the tent. And after a little while, they can hear little footsteps behind their tent. And after about another 15 minutes, they hear something else outside their tent, like something trying to get into Dominic's tackle box. And something else was trying to get into his aunt's tent. But luckily, Caleb had tied it up with 30-pound fishing line. And then something else was trying to put out their campfire. And Caleb knows there were no people around there, or they would have heard their heavier footsteps. And both boys have the feeling that whatever it is, that there's 6 of them, because one is trying to put out the fire, one's trying to get into their aunt's tent, one's messing with Dominic's tackle box, but they can still hear what sounds like 3 of them behind their tent. And they know it has to be skinwalkers, because not only is the air filled with the smell of dead animals, but the boys could just feel something evil in the air. Now, Caleb and Dominic are both 14 that summer, and I personally think that the phrase "curiosity killed the cat" was coined specifically for 14-year-old boys, because they just cannot help but peek under the tent flaps to see what it is that's moving around their campsite. And what they see freaks them out, to put it mildly. They see beings with the feet of a goat and the antlers of a deer walking around their fire. And the fire is pretty big, so they had a pretty good look at these things. And Caleb's heart is pumping so hard that he can feel it sending blood to every nerve ending, and he can hear the endless thudding in his ears. And the skinwalkers keep saying their names,
Caleb, Dominic,
over and over. And the boys actually had aluminum bats with them in the tents, but they were way too scared to use them. And Caleb just keeps thinking that this is his last day in this world. And he starts praying to God that his aunt will come back soon. And he knows God answered his prayer, because in less than 10 minutes, his aunt came back. And she's a little overwhelmed when both the boys come running at her from the tent, asking her over and over, "Did you see them? Did you see them?" And she told the boys that she saw a few guys around the campfire with what looked like furs on them, but as soon as her headlights hit them, they ran away. So all 3 of them kind of look around the campsite, and they can see that that stick that Dominic put on his tackle box is now laying off to the side. And their aunt does her best to calm the boys down and get them back to bed. But the growls they hear later that night is enough to get Dominic up and out of his tent and spreading ash in a circle around both of their tents for protection. And to this day, when Caleb and Dominic tell their story, they start shaking because they are still so scared of what happened that night. And Caleb's aunt doesn't speak of it, because she believes that if she does, whatever that evil was will come back to haunt them. And Caleb knows that this story doesn't sound real to some people, but he swears it's true. He knows there are skinwalkers, and they are real. And if you don't believe him, go to the mountains near Wheatfield, Arizona, on the northeast side of Arizona or the northwest part of New Mexico, and just stay out there and wait for them to come, because he guarantees something will happen. And if you just cannot get enough creepiness, click here for more, and we will see you again on the In-Between.